You know, the great thing about Roundup Ready crops is we could spray Roundup on them. But other than that, it didn't really add any herbicide options for us other than the ones we were using in conventional, like in soybeans, for example. All those conventional soybean herbicides are still there. If you're switching from Roundup Ready to conventional, or if you say, well, I'm planting Roundup Ready beans because Roundup kills a lot of weeds for me, but there's a few that it doesn't, hey, those conventional herbicides can still be used. We're going to talk today about conventional herbicides, what the program is, what weeds we can control, and how they can be used successfully.
Right, so let's say that you don't have Roundup or Liberty, neither is an option, or they're just not working the way you want them. Here's what we suggest you do. Start with a 3 pre-emerge herbicide strategy. That would be one of the yellows, Sonalan, Treflan, or Prowl, with a PPO, that's either Authority or Valor, and Metribuzin, that's the old Sencor or Lexone. A lot of people say, oh, I can't use Metribuzin. Yes, you can. If your soil pH is above 7.4, or if you have sandy soil, then cut your rate back. I'm not saying you have to use the 1/3 of a pound. We would normally recommend use a 1/6 of a pound, or an 1/8 of a pound, or a 1/10 of a pound. You'll still get the same performance as the guy in lower pH, but you won't have to invest as much money. And yes, I realize this costs a little bit of money, but it's not that much. You're going to spend in the range of $12 to $20 an acre to have this 3 pre strategy, and you're going to kill 99.9% of almost all weeds.
Well, that's the big thing. I just look at it in terms of how many bushels I'm going to have to give up for this program. So you say, well, 12 to 20, let's just say it's 20, and let's say we have $8 soybeans. That's 2.5 bushels of beans to get 99% of my weeds. That's easily worth it. If you have any kind of weed escapes at all in your field, even if you killed 90% of the weeds, but 10% were still out there, you'd have a disaster, and you'd lose 10 bushels or more on your soybeans. Everybody that's raised soybeans knows that weed control is number one. I have to stop the weeds or I'm gonna lose lots of yield. That pre-program is well worth it. And the other thing is, all those products you just talked about, Brian, none of them can be used post-emerge. So we're using products and using sites of action and tools in our tool belt that we can't use again later in the season anyway. So it's great to get them out early, and we've taken no options off the table post.
Okay, what we suggest to you is to do the 3 pre's, then scout your fields and see what happens. Maybe you don't have to spray anything. In a lot of cases, you will. We have plenty of grass herbicide options that are dirt cheap. Okay, there's Arrow, there's Select Max, there's Fusilade, whole bunch of options.
Well,
all right?
and on most of the grasses across the country, if you were in Roundup Ready or Liberty Link soybeans, you've got those options too that also kill the grasses. It's been mainly the broadleaf weeds that we've been struggling with.
Okay, so let's talk about those broadleaf weeds. It just depends on which weed you have as to what the best herbicide option is. So you can go to the Ag PhD Field Guide app. It's a free download for your smartphone or your iPad, and you can look up our best recommendations for the weeds that you have on your farm. But what we would tell you right now is there aren't very many herbicides that are very good, especially if the weeds are bigger than 4 inches tall. You've got to get those weeds when they're 4 inches tall or less post-emerge in soybeans, and you can do okay on most weeds. So Flexstar, we would say, is the best thing for Palmer pigweed and water hemp. It also has good activity in ragweed.
It can't be used everywhere though, nope. Brian, and that's a challenge. We've seen some guys in soybean areas that, man, if they try and push it a little too far north or a little too far west and they get up to the top end of the labeled rate even, there can be some carryover issues, especially on dry years.
Yep, so that can be a concern. You've got Cadet and also Resource that are excellent on velvet leaf. Cadet's probably a little bit better on Resource on some other weeds, but neither one of them is going to be perfect on really anything else. You also have Cobra, and that is pretty decent on ragweed, on a lot of the water hemp species. Not horrible on kochia, not very good, but it's the best option there is. But the problem with Cobra is it really burns the beans, and a lot of these herbicides are going to give you some leaf burn. So this is one of the reasons why a lot of people switch to Roundup or Liberty in the first place. They didn't like all that leaf burn. Well, there's nothing much you can do when you're trying to kill broadleaves in a broadleaf crop like soybeans with a conventional herbicide.
Well, I guess that was the other benefit of using the pre-program is you don't have all the leaf burn like you do with some of these post-emerge options. Sure, you may see some kind of a splash-up effect with those PPOs on the beans, but nothing like you're going to see post-emerge with a full rate of Cobra.
Yep, the last thing I would mention is Harass. That's the very best thing on lamb's quarters. So with all of these weeds that you could end up with in soybeans, you just have to look at, okay, which ones do I have? Do I have to start mixing products? You're probably going to be ahead to work with an agronomist if you have several different weeds out there post-emerge. But my one piece of advice for you is, well, in addition to spray early, is make sure you control the worst weed first. Focus on that, get the best product for the worst weed on your farm. And if you start with that good pre-program, hopefully you don't have too many weeds to deal with post-emerge.
Hey, real quick, Brian, just if you had a problem and you didn't get those pre's on, since you can't use them post, is there still residual options you could use?
Sure. What we call option 2, I would say Warrant, Zidua, Outlook, Dual. Those all have residual, but they don't have contact activity. So you can spray those early post. That works pretty well. And other products like Pursuit, that's the best thing on Nightshade, or Flex Star, they have some residual as well. So there are some residual products, but here's the thing. If you're going to plant conventional soybeans and you don't get those 3 pre's on, you might as well start over and plant something else, because chances are it's not going to work. We just don't have very good options post-emerge, and when you get any weeds in there, your yield is going to suffer. And quit looking at these stupid studies that I see that say, oh, you can let the weeds get 4 inches tall. Well, you can if you want to take 5-10 bushels off. I mean, we want big time yield. We don't need 40 bushel yield. Come on.
Well,
we're looking
really,
for 60 or 70, and you're not going to get there if you have weeds.
Now, one of the weeds that you may be after in your conventional soybean fields is our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?